All right, so my name is Josh Walker. This is Christina Wiesman. We are the co-presidents of the American Fork Chamber of Commerce. We are the voice of business here in American Fork. And so we're excited to host this debate tonight, and we have gathered a lot of questions, more questions than we have time for, honestly, and so we're just going to get through as many questions as possible. Our moderator tonight is Seth Holdaway. He is the chair of our board of directors, and he's the branch manager for CC Bank. Let's give him a round of applause. Okay, so we're going to turn the time over to Seth. He is going to go over the timing and basic. What'd you do? And let's see, I turned it off. Oh. The senior center ran out of batteries. Okay, we need batteries.
Everybody yell.
Our people are noise. Okay, well, we're gonna go really loud until I can track down some batteries. So, okay. Seth, he does radio, so he can project.
Oh.
I did.
And I'm gonna track down some batteries, okay?
All right.
I knew I should have checked.
That's all right.
Okay.
I've had that happen
AA.
to myself many times.
Yeah.
It's very nice to be here tonight. I hope everybody can hear me okay. We'll project as much as possible. Like Josh and Christina said, I'm Seth Holdaway. I am the chairman of the Chamber of Commerce Board of Directors this year. It's a fun opportunity to be able to help give back to the community. Excited to be here today with the candidates and excited to present questions that were submitted directly to the Chamber from residents here in the community. To give you an idea of the format, each candidate will be given 2 minutes for an opening statement. After that, we will start with the questions. 1 minute will be allotted to each.
3-minute opening statement.
2-minute closing.
We told them originally 3, so
Okay.
Keep it 3.
3 minutes opening statement, thank you.
I'll do 1.
So 3 minutes for an opening statement. With the questions, they will be allotted 1 minute per question, with each candidate will be given a 30-second opportunity for a rebuttal if they so choose. And then closing statements will be 2 minutes at the very end. Good. All right. So we drew names randomly and alphabetically. This is how it works. Each candidate will be given the same opportunity to be the first person to answer a question. So what we'll do is we'll start with Stacey, then we'll go Ryan, and then Carissa, and then from there we'll just continue to rotate. So if you notice that I messed that up, just let me know because I obviously tried my best.
All right. Look, we have batteries.
Okay.
Okay, this is me doing my song and dance. Thank you, Seth.
Do I need to repeat any of that? Or is that loud enough? Okay, great. All right, well, let's go ahead and let's start with Stacey. And Stacey, the first question we would like to ask you is very basic. Why are you... Oh, no, that's right. I'm really glad that somebody said opening statements because that would have been a big mistake. So let's start with Stacey's opening statement.
Do I stand or no?
If you'd like.
Okay. I think I will, especially because there's people in the back. Thank you. My name is Stacey Carroll. In the 3 minutes that I have, I want to give a report of some of the things that I have been doing on the council that I feel have helped to move the city forward. Each council member has specific assignments where we contribute above and beyond our normal duties. I've had 4 assignments. First, I have been the Still Days liaison for 4 years. I've helped to shape and run Still Days, of course with the help of many others. During my time, we've hired the Chamber of Commerce as event planners for the festival, which has saved the city money and gotten more businesses and members of the community involved. Second, I have been assigned to work with the American Fork Chamber of Commerce, where I've served on the board of directors for 4 years. I've spent many hours talking to business owners, attending their openings, and helping to ensure that the chamber remains an asset to the city and its businesses. Third, I have been assigned to watch over economic development. I've been involved in many conversations with city staff and other stakeholders about the development of our city. As the city grows, the attention to economic development will continue to be of paramount importance. Fourth, this past year I've taken on an assignment to sit on the League of Cities and Towns Legislative Policy Committee. This fits well with my knowledge of legislative processes. Because of my background, I have always paid attention to state policy, especially tax policy. This assignment allows the city to have a voice in what bills the league supports or fights, capitalizing on our investment and support of the league. Outside of those specialized assignments, I have taken an active interest in every issue that comes before the council. But there are certain topics that are of great importance to me. Our city's water infrastructure has been one of those. While I was running 4 years ago, I emphasized the need to shore up this essential system. During my time, we have placed considerable resources in upgrading our water system. We've repiped the culinary line that comes from the Canyon Spring. We've moved and rebuilt the chlorinator station. We have replaced many old water lines, and we have completed significant portions of a large water line expansion rehabilitation extending from the mouth of the canyon through the city. Another major goal of mine was to make sure that the city had enough of a savings account to prevent catastrophe. During my first year in office, the savings account was 11% of our general fund balance. Over the course of 4 budget cycles, we have increased that amount to 35%, the maximum allowable amount. This means we are now saving for a rainy day better than we were before. I don't have time here to enumerate every way I feel I have contributed. My message is that I feel like I have worked very hard for the city over the past 4 years to advance and promote the viability and fiscal responsibility of the city. Thank you very much.
You're going to find pretty quick that I am woefully underprepared as compared to Stacey. My name is Ryan Hunter, and I am running for re-election. Well, really, I'm running for election. So those of you that don't know my backstory, I was appointed by the council earlier this year to fill the very large shoes of Barbara Christiansen, who passed away unexpectedly. I take that responsibility very seriously. I have a long tenured track record of serving here in the city in just volunteer positions. I've spent my entire life here. I grew up down near Rotary Park. My parents still own that home, and recently my wife and I guess it's been about 3 years, we were able to actually reacquire a home that my grandparents built here in town in the 60s. And so American Fork is home to me. It's not just a place where we, hey, this will be fun and this will be an opportunity. I genuinely believe that now is an opportunity for me to serve. I feel like I've spent a lot of time volunteering. If you've seen my list of experience, I probably ought to pull it up. But as a current council member, served on the Planning Commission prior to this as an assignment. Was on the Planning Commission for about 2 years prior to that. I was the chair of the public safety bond that went through several years ago, 3 years ago, that allowed us to procure the bond funding that we needed to be able to secure the property and the finances to build the new fire station that will be in the northeast quadrant of the city. It also has allowed us to procure land on the south side of town that will allow us to have a couple acre parcel that will be for our next fire station. So that long-term strategy and fulfillment of that is very important to me. I too have been a part of the Chamber of Commerce. It's actually how I met Stacey originally. I was on the Chamber of Commerce board for, about 12 years, I believe. Served in that volunteer capacity for a long time in various aspects of, including chair of that body. I was also the inaugural, when the Chamber of Commerce took over the responsibility to manage and run Steel Days. I was in that position for the first time, and it's only gotten better. So luckily they could step on me and go beyond. But they've done a fantastic job, including Business Person of the Year. I received special honors from the Highway Patrol. I've been through our Citizens Academy in the police department. I served on the Use of Force Review Board with the American Fork Police Department as well. I've also served in a couple other capacities in charter school boards and chairs of boards in governing capacity. And so I look forward to being able to share more of that as we get going, but just know that I love the city of American Fork and I look forward to the opportunity to continue to serve. Yep.
Hello, you guys. I'm Carissa George. I am running for American Fork City Council. I have lived here in American Fork for 6 years, where I am raising my family as a wife and a mother of 2 young kiddos. In 2007, I graduated from Utah Valley University. I got my bachelor's degree in business management with an emphasis in human resources. Straight after graduation, I began my career with a major corporation as a process fixer. So they would move me from building to work with teams that were not able to meet their goals. It was my responsibility to identify what the problems were and remove the roadblocks so that the teams could meet their metrics. This looked different every time. Sometimes it was critical thinking and problem solving. Sometimes it's communication with the team and training and development, holding people accountable. It always includes celebrating our wins along the way. Currently, I am a mom and also a local podcaster. So that means that every week I co-host and produce audio content that is basically me sharing my experience and also resources that have been beneficial for me along the way. Now, the reason why I tell you this is because that job requires a lot of interviewing other people. And it is in listening to the stories that other people share about their lived experience that has been the catalyst for me to help get involved and to get involved locally and to act within my city. I love connecting with other people because I love people. This is my strong suit. My skills and capabilities of problem solving and critical thinking going hand in hand with my natural capability to just connect with other people and help them succeed. As your city councilwoman, I will help our community solve problems with efficiency. I am running for city council because I love American Fork. This is a great place to raise a family, which I intend to do so. I am running to be your city councilwoman because I love our community and I want to make it that much better. The foundation of my campaign rests on 2 basic principles: safe and secure community, transparency and oversight. Within these 2 principles, there are a lot of concepts that go into and motivate my decision-making process to enact policy to make both of those goals possible for your family and for mine. Okay, real quick, let's just dig into what makes a community safe. When families have access to the resources that they need, and when the leadership of the city is supporting and helping families meet their basic needs, we are all safer as a community. As we continue to have this conversation tonight, I'm going to share a few examples that I think City Council can help impact these 2 goals to make sure that our city is safe. Okay, I love our little town, and I would also love your vote and support on November 2nd. Thank you, guys.
All right, thank you very much. We're going to get right into the questions here, and we'll start with Stacey. Stacey, the first question we have is, what do you see as your primary function as serving on the city council?
Oh, time is already going. There's a couple of different things that I see. One is that I see myself being a liaison of citizens. So not every citizen can or want to be on the city council. So I view that as part of my goal, as part of my role. Part of my other role in tandem with that is definitely to research in-depth topics and understand how processes work. When you're looking at a city, there's many things that are interconnected with different agencies and different things that happen throughout the state and sometimes throughout the country. And I find that it is my role as a city council member to understand and build relationships with people to do those things. Third, I would say part of that is building relationships with other council members and staff in order to move policy along. I find that if somebody is completely antagonistic and not willing to work with other people, they're not very effective. So I find that I want somebody who, and I strive to be this person, somebody who will work hard to build those relationships.
I don't know if I can start before the timer goes or not. Is it the same question?
Yes.
Okay. So I would agree with Stacey on a lot of those points. Obviously, the first thing is to be the voice for the citizens that have elected us. It's really important that we understand what the desires, and obviously we appreciate each of you being here. That's the active, engaged policy that allows us to understand what it is we're asking you to do, or you're asking us to do, excuse me. And I just appreciate that. Sorry, can you hear in the back? Okay, sorry, I thought you said louder. So a lot of what we want to focus on is the ability for us to be able to be effective. I believe very strongly in not micromanaging. There's two distinct differences in serving on bodies between governing and managing. And many people want to get in and do a managing position from a position like a council or a chair of the board, for example. And governing is a significant responsibility that the council has.
Same question.
Oh, well, I see my role as a city
Yes.
councilwoman.
What do you see as the primary function of serving on the city council?
Okay. Awesome. So as a city councilwoman, I believe that the role is to be an advocate for the constituents and the citizens in our community. The city council is a legislative body that helps decide what the city budget is going to be, where we're going to put resources, and help solve the problems that we run into as community members. And so that takes a lot of time, a lot of research, a lot of knowledge. And so being able to be that, an advocate for my fellow city members, making sure that we are reinvesting our taxpayer dollars and our resources into our families and our communities so that we can all be successful and thriving, so that American Fork can be successful and thriving.
Our next question will start with Ryan. And Ryan, the question is this. What is your current or would be your relationship with the city staff?
Thank you. So I have a distinct advantage here, I believe. Having grown up here, I've lived in this city or worked in this city for 43 years, basically. I think I was 1 year old when I was moved here as a little baby into that very house I mentioned. Many of the individuals that I mentioned, I've been through the Citizens Academy. I've worked with the police force. I've worked with the streets department, one of my best friends growing up. Now, the beauty of that is not to be able to suggest that they're doing a perfect job, but I do trust them. Our staff are fantastic at what they do. Are there opportunities for them to increase and improve like we all have? Absolutely. But my relationship with the individual staff is probably second to none. And I value that very much. So they feel comfortable coming to me with questions or suggestions. Many times, I mentioned the governing and managing role. Many times those that are in the street every day doing their job are the best source for what can be the next step.
Same question.
Okay. All right, so as I have started my campaign and been working with members who work for the city, I just have to say, you're so kind. And every time I have an interaction with someone, I think, oh my gosh, I could work with you. This is gonna be fun. So what I see the relationship with the people who work with the city is listening. So this is something I have a lot of experience with as somebody who is an interviewer, listening to their concerns, listening to what they are experiencing, and then being able to bring creativity to solve these complex problems. Being able to work with them, like Stacey said, being somebody who works with people, and listening to, because like you said, they're on the streets, they're the people who are they're in the roles and they understand what they are up against every day. So listening and being a creative partner in problem solving.
Okay, I also feel like I have a bit of an advantage because I've been working with city staff for the past 4 years. A couple of thoughts. One is that the city staff are members of our community also, and they have a vested interest in making it a great place to be. They want to live here, they want to have a great place, which makes it a little bit of an easier conversation because they have the same pulls and pushes that I have. I have a very great relationship, I believe, with most of the city staff, and I feel like I don't give edicts to them as a city council member. We work in tandem. When I have my employees, I don't usually say, do this because I say so. We talk and have conversations about it. And that goes along with the idea of not micromanaging because I don't feel like I know everything. In fact, as a council member, you know very little compared to city staff. You rely on them a lot for their paid expertise. They are the experts that we hire to run the city.
All right, we are going to go on to the next question now, unless anybody wanted to add to that, what they said originally. Okay. And so this question will be for Carissa first. Carissa, what ideas do you have to increase revenue or cut expenses?
Okay, so that's this question. Okay. All right. If we want American Fork to be a thriving city, we need the individuals and the families to also be successful and thriving. I have a couple of ideas. Okay, first one, mompreneurs. Yes, you heard me right. Moms who are entrepreneurs. Utah Valley, and especially our little city, is full of women who, and parents both, who have desired skills and artistic abilities. And so when they are given the opportunity to turn their skills into dollars, that helps them provide for their family. For example, when the city leadership provides opportunities like farmers markets, pop-up shops, artist co-ops, these are perfect opportunities for our community members to take their skills and turn it into money to put food on their family's table. Yep, and then also oversight. So when we're critical with how we are spending our money and listening to feedback, then that will help us be better spenders of taxpayer dollars. Woo. There you go.
Could you repeat that question so I make sure I understand it?
What ideas do you have to increase revenue or
Okay.
cut expenses
For the city.
for the city?
Okay. The answer to this for me is pretty boring. We look constantly at ways to be more efficient in what we're doing, and we have made a lot of strides in a lot of areas, to be honest. I'll give you a very small example. One of them is that we have put efforts into lining our sewer pipes, which then decreases the amount of leakage of water into the surrounding area and keeps it into the system. It's an efficiency. So we're constantly looking at new ways to make the city efficient. And that's how you decrease expenses. I don't believe in just cutting people off completely. One of the ways that we have been increasing revenue is our fitness center has been increasing their pass sales. We've been doing really good on that. I don't have enough time in 1 minute to actually dive into the revenues and expenses of the city very well, but the bottom line really is greater efficiencies.
All right, so this, Stacey mentioned it, going line by line through the budget is a process. We'd asked earlier, what's the role of the city council? Frankly, nobody else in the city wants to do that or probably cares to do that, right? It has the time. That's our job. We do that. We already have done that. I missed the retreat for this year, but I've been a part of it. I voted on the budget for the coming year. And it's not like there's a whole bunch of fluff out there. One of the things that we've talked about, there's not going to be enough time in 30 seconds to finish this, but if we were to take the quarter-acre lot that my house sits on and pick it up from this area, take that same exact usage and dump it in another city, would it cost me more to live there or less to live there, right? We've done that analysis. We have that information, and we can tell you we're right there. The big difference is the cities that are below us are subsidizing their citizens' costs with things like either power or fiber. With 1 second, I would say fiber is probably our next option to subsidize. Did you want to contribute?
Anybody else?
rebuttals?
Okay, rebuttal.
Sorry. I didn't want to just...
Oh, thank you, I appreciate that. Okay, let's move on now. So we're back to Stacey for the next question. This is a question that I hear all the time. How will you address and fix the road quality issues and increased traffic problems?
Okay, except for that's two different questions. Traffic is way different than road quality. Which one would I like to tackle? Road quality it is. Okay, a couple of different things. One, we have, since I've been on the council, we've increased our funding dramatically for the roads. And I think you have seen that in the number of roads that have been closed for redoing. And I know it's hard and I know it's a pain, but I'm actually, every time I see it, I'm like, yes, we're fixing another road. So that's one thing. I feel like while we're doing that, we're making, sadly, incremental progress, but at the same time, maybe that's the best kind of progress we can make with the funds that we have. A couple of other different things to think about. We have done a lot of work in making sure that the utilities under the roads are fixed before we redo a road. And that we're hoping, well, we know that it will save us a lot of money in the long run if we do that instead of cutting the road afterward to fix the line. So that also makes it a little slower, but more efficient.
Perfect. I totally concur with what Stacey said. One of my biggest frustrations, we were all, well, maybe not everybody, those of us that were here and dealt with the pressurized irrigation when it tore up every single street in the city, I do not want to see that happen when we go put a fiber infrastructure in the city. So my approach to that would be to make sure that when we make that decision sooner than later, so that we can install that throughout the roads and then take a holistic approach, like Stacey mentioned, it's already happening. We replace a sewer line that needs to be replaced. If the residual service life, RSL, on roads is typically 8 to 12 years. That's not enough. Roads are designed to be at least 20 years. We need to be increasing that, and we're working towards that. The staff and council have done a great job of throwing every dollar. I'll just add that because of the savings that Stacey mentioned earlier that we're now hitting, and we have that max amount that we can keep in our savings, we're now going to be able to put as much as maybe $1 million towards roads this year that we wouldn't have normally been able to.
All right, I agree with both of them. I think intentionality with city planning is a big deal. I think when we're able to think ahead and see the vision that we want for our future, for our families as they grow, and be able to make that into the plan as we're writing the budget, I think that will help alleviate frustration and concerns with going and like redigging back up the roads and repaving them. Can we talk about traffic for a minute? It was part of the question. Okay, so I actually believe that this super busy road from one exit to the other is working exactly how it's supposed to. You have all these cute little neighborhoods that funnel into one major shopping area. This is the place that everybody wants to be, and so everyone takes the same road to get there. That's exactly how it's supposed to work. Again, if we're thinking about intentionality and thinking about what we want the future of American Fork to look like, when we can plan and have spaces that people will want to go to that are more spread out, then we will eliminate all of this cluster that happens, especially on a Friday night. Intentionality and specificity with planning.
Would any of you like to contact or comment on traffic?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll give Stacey the last one here. Traffic is a huge issue, of course. One of the biggest problems that we have in this city, I don't know if this is 30 seconds, okay. Huge issue. One of the biggest problems we have is east-west connectivity. Now, the Murdoch connector is a huge one that obviously went in. Hooray, we all love it. Everybody's used it, and we can't imagine life without it. We have the same thing that's going to happen on 700 North. That will be a main connector that will go through. It's being designed right now. You've seen a little bit of work going there. The biggest thing that we have a hurdle with is I-15. When it shuts down, we have an emergency situation, and all the traffic tries to come down a road that wasn't planned for that. We need it on the south for Vineyard Connector.
Okay, so much to say about traffic. Just one point that I want to say, though, is that many of the roads that are congested in our city are state roads. It's not the state's fault necessarily, but they're the ones who have the control over that. So part of the city government's job and part of the council's job is to work with the state, and you need those relationships and those know-how in order to work together to figure out solutions that will combine both this, I'm running out of breath because I'm trying to talk so fast, combine the city's goals with the state's goals. Talk to me more if you want to know more.
Carissa, you are entitled to 30 seconds more if you'd like it. No? You're okay? All right. Great. All right. Let's move on. Ryan will fill the next question. This was something that we all dealt with this last summer. What are your plans to deal with water shortages as the city continues to grow?
I love this question. So I am the son of a landscape maintenance man. I grew up my whole life. We mowed lawns all over the city. The mayor actually lives that life now. Water is a huge issue in our city. I love that somewhere down the road, 80 years ago, somebody made the decision to put something in place that allows our drinking water to not be an issue. Well, anyway, we'll go to there. But the irrigation water is a huge thing. We're pushing right now. We will have metering. We'll have the funding for that next year, I'm guessing. We're going to start that right now. That will cut back on that significantly. The real answer to this question, to this significant issue, is being able to take and recycle our sewer water. And that is, let's take the opportunity that we have having to live next to a sewer station and make it be a benefit to our city because of the piping is so much closer. Let's take that, and that will be our new irrigation water that will actually help us after it's been recycled.
ideas. So I can hear.
Sure, yeah. What are your plans to deal with water shortages as the city continues to grow?
Okay. I love what you said. I love the idea of recycling the water, which we need to do. This is another problem that I think we can bring some creativity to. So if we, as a city leadership, could help give discounts, refunds, or deals to our citizens to be able to save and collect rainwater, or to be able to clean out our little streams that go by. Little things like that that aren't going to cost a lot of money that will help our citizens be creative in being able to access water, just like what happened in Texas this last year. That was scary. Something like that happened here. If we had access to water in our very backyard, we could avoid a lot of the catastrophe that our fellow Americans experience. So once again, just creativity to bringing creativity to a complex problem.
Okay, so the water is two forms. We have, and they alluded to this already, but there's the drinking water, the culinary water, and then the irrigation water, and they actually come through two different pipes and come from two different sources. So the drinking water that we have comes from a spring in the canyon. Well, 50% of it comes from a spring in the canyon. But the reason I'm mentioning that is because within the last 4 years, can't remember which year it was, we repiped that pipe that brings the water from that incredible spring down to our taps. And that is reducing the leakage of the water that was happening. It was an old pipe and it was kind of cracked in some places, so we're saving water there. Secondly, until we meter our irrigation, we aren't going to naturally save irrigation water. It's already mandated by the state that we have to do it, but we have budgeted it for it this coming year to start the process to put meters on all the citizens' irrigation, and that will allow us to do that.
Does anybody else want to add anything?
Yeah, I can
Sure.
add another thing. Also, along with that creativity, being able to help support our systems to do more like zero-scape, so we don't have to use so much water with the grass. Like the signs say that you guys keep putting out, every little bit helps, and so being able to have zero-scape and beautiful landscapes in front of our houses and in our backyards without having to use so much water. There you go. You didn't even need the timer. Done.
You both have 30 seconds, yes,
Okay.
if you like it.
Do you want me to wait until he's?
You know, it may be a while. Let's see.
I'll just go, but somebody pull my chair out or something if I'm too long-winded. Two things. I love that our city was at the forefront this year of setting a standard for the state in saving water. That's a kudos, not to me. I wasn't a part of that. I mean, I was, but really that's the staff and the council that's here. I'm excited to be a part of that. I take that stewardship seriously. Literally hundreds of thousands of gallons of water were saved because of the acts of our council and staff, the mayor. The second thing is that culinary line is huge, and I want to make sure that we make those decisions that will benefit future generations. I don't know if you have 30 seconds, but
Okay, great.
Thank you. Let's move on to our next question, which Carissa will be answering first. Carissa, how do we work better? Actually, let me reword this. How do we better work with developers and improve the process for building and permitting in the city?
Okay, I'm going to use my favorite word again. I know you guys have heard it a lot. I love it. Intentionality. That's a big part of it. I know that with our permits and a lot of those codes that those pieces of paper that our builders need in order to build on our property, I think that that's a great way for us to bring in revenue for our city, and just making sure that we are intentional in working with them. So if the city has a plan, rather than letting the contractors and the builders just build how they desire and build on top and wherever they would like, instead having very specific code and regulation, because we are intentional with how we want our city to look in the future. Beautiful and congruent. Oh, this is yeah.
sorry.
I mean, yes.
Okay. I am very intimately aware of our development process. There's quite a few different things we could do. One of the things that I really would like to be a priority is having the developers in the city have the same goal. Instead of looking at each other as antagonistic, they need to have look, we're gonna partner together to build something. Because essentially, as we're building our city, it's not the city government that builds it, it's the developers. So creating those partnerships is one of the big things that I would really like to change. And part of that is changing culture of how we treat developers. We want them to follow all of the rules. That is not the problem. We just want to make sure that we're treating everybody fairly and streamlining our processes. So that's my second point, is streamlining. Some of the things we do might be cumbersome, that we could cut off some of those things. Not cut off the thing, but just streamline the process for it. And I'm out of time. Thank you.
All right. Like I mentioned earlier, I served on the Planning Commission for a couple of years prior to the assignment to the council, and we do have codes. The codes are there. There are plenty of projects that come through the city that don't go to the council. I don't know how many people understand that process. The codes are there to protect and hold developers accountable for that. Now, my day job is for a general contractor. That's what I do every day. I'm intimately aware of that process, but protecting and having the code that's established and then following that is critical to making sure that, to Stacey's point, we're on the same team. The only thing we can't do is, change the code midstream. Now, others would disagree, but developers, all they want to do is live within the code and then make the development happen. We don't get to say whether they can develop their property or not. Now, we can say we're not going to annex something, but that's where it limits there. So if it falls within the code, I'll leave it at that. If it falls within the code, then they're bound to that.
Anybody want an extra 30 seconds? Okay.
You want 30 seconds more?
I guess I could continue. I took 10 seconds more than I should have.
Great. Okay, we're going to do a couple more questions and then we'll finish up with the closing statements. And this question, we're back to Stacey now. Stacey, do you support or oppose the park tax and why?
Easy, 100% support. I know it's a tax. I've talked to a couple of other people that are like, just the idea of voting for a tax is hard, but it's a no-brainer for me. We get so much money for the park tax that we don't have to pay for ourselves as residents. Much of the money comes from people that are coming into our city to purchase things. It's only on sales tax. It's 1/10 of 1%. And so basically I can't do the math. Don't ask me to do the math. It's 1/10 of 1%. And we pay for it when we pay for our sales tax, but everybody else coming in pays for it too. And that's a huge thing. And since it's a dedicated fund, we've been able to do things that we haven't been able to do for years. And I am so grateful for that. We've been able to enhance the life of our citizens, enhance the life of our community, which to me is incredibly important to be a great place to live. That's honestly why I ran for council in the first place. So having something that's dedicated just for that we can't use for other things, perfect.
Totally in support of the park tax. I wasn't always in that position. Several years ago, I actually came away from a park tax where I had approached the Park Tax Committee for some funding. Was not funded, and I felt like that was not conducive to what that was for. That process has improved over the years as that Parks Committee has evolved. It absolutely, I mentioned that I grew up down by Rotary Park. In 43 years, if you live down there, you know that park didn't get touched for 43 years until the last, I'll call it 4 years. We have new pavilions down there, we have new garbage cans, we have new playgrounds. That's all across the city. That's the one that stands out to me because it's the one I know of, right? All of that, the backstop back there, that was a catastrophic failure. If you played baseball there, I coached baseball for years. That was a catastrophic failure. It's awesome. And people come into our city. I had a friend come from Davis County, came down, played baseball at that field and said, how did you fund this backstop park tax? Absolutely in favor of it.
Awesome. Cool. We're all in agreement. 100%. I also support the park tax. I'm voting yes for Prop 5. The very first time I heard about the park tax was when my son, he was in kindergarten, and he brought home a little book, and on the inside cover it said, this book is for River, from the book Fairy, sponsored by the park tax. So this is a phenomenal way to take taxpayer dollars and reinvest them back into our families. Once I saw it on the inside book cover, then I started noticing the signs everywhere. They're posted in our rec center. They're posted at the parks. This is a great way to help help with the Fork Fest. This is a great way to bring activities and resources to deepen our culture and to bring our community together and to help our families thrive. Do we all agree? Yeah.
I do have one
Oh,
more point.
okay.
Okay, one quick point is another safeguard that we have for this program is that we have an independent board of citizens that are not elected. They're not part of anything. They're just regular citizens that are interested in this. They vet every grant proposal that comes before them. So before the council sees it, before anybody at the city sees it, they, as an independent body, make a recommendation, and that has really given us a gut check, I guess that's the official term, of making sure that this is what's going to be good for the residents as a whole.
I love that board because, like I said, it's evolved over time. I love the oversight that they're taking, looking at financial statements of those that are receiving those donations. That's a huge step. I love that it goes to investing in long-term assets for the city, and that's one of the things that I would like to see. I will push for is an opportunity to see those assets be held and retained by the city as best as possible. The last thing I want to just mention, I wrote it down and I don't know where it is. Most of those funds, a significant portion of those funds are not paid for by our citizens. They're paid for by neighboring citizens. No more.
Thank you. Okay, this will be our final question, and then we'll go to closing statements. And we are back to Ryan. The question is, Ryan, how do you plan to build and improve infrastructure for technology that will keep the city current with increasing demands for technology? Some examples of that would be fiber, 911 response, water, those kinds of things.
Thank you. So I mentioned earlier both things that I want to talk about are fiber, first of all, fiber, and second of all, the bond for the fire station. All of our property tax insurance for the for our homes is impacted by the response time of our public safety officials. The 4 to 6 minute window, if it's not met, all of our property tax goes up, or the insurance cost, I'm sorry, not the tax, the insurance. And so because of that, having another station in town actually keeps our insurance rates low. That affects each one of us. In addition to that, fiber, and what was the other one? Bond. Oh, fiber is the other one. I went in opposite order. Bond was the first one. Fiber, that is a way that we're going to be able to create it, but I don't want to have all of our brand new roads tore up with another trench down the middle of it to be able to put in a fiber line. It's going to cost money, but it is absolutely an opportunity for us to be able to create an atmosphere where capitalism can thrive, and we, the residents, will be able to be benefited from that competition.
Can you repeat the question?
Sure, yeah. How do you plan to build and improve infrastructure for technology that will keep the city current with the increasing demand for technology?
Awesome. Okay. Ryan, I agree with you. I think fiber is crucial. As we have seen, in 2020, when our schools closed down and our works closed down and we had to do everything from home, there were a lot of families, a lot of children who didn't have internet in their homes, and so being able to access that education or being able to access the outer world in a time of a pandemic, that was scary, that was hard, and not everybody had that access. And so being able to have access to fiber and the internet that is part of our infrastructure, welcome to America 2021. And so I think being able to make sure that we can provide that as a resource for our citizens is a responsibility of the leadership of the city. What was the other part of the question?
Technology, infrastructure, improve technology that will keep the city current with the demand.
Okay, yeah, and I'll just say that.
Okay, this is maybe something that I differ a little bit with some of the city council members. I have not fully decided where I stand on putting in a fiber system in the city. I don't know 100% if I think it's going to work for the city government to do it, or if we want to partner with somebody else to do it, and what form it would take and how we would make it work. So I'm not as jazzed about it. However, I can convince anybody that there are many people in the city who do not have good internet, and the need for it is really great. I'm still trying to navigate the idea of where we sit as a city government and what's going to be the best option for our residents. If that's a cop-out, I'm sorry, but that's where I stand right now.
Can I?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think that's a great point. Like knowing like what's the best way to go forward. Like maybe we don't have the answers, but as a city councilwoman, like that would be a priority for me. Maybe I don't know exactly how we're going to do that and who we need to partner with, but that would be a priority for me to make sure that everybody has excellent access to the internet, because that is critical in order for our businesses and our families and our education to thrive.
All right, so I want to just mention two things. I serve on the library board. I'm a liaison to the council from the library. One of the things that most people don't know is that we have Wi-Fi hotspots at the library that are available to those who do not have access to the internet. They can check those out. It's a fantastic thing. The unfortunate thing is there's not enough, right? Fiber is critical. I don't want to own an internet service provider. I don't think the city should be in that world. What I want is to own the infrastructure that 10 different companies, internet service providers, battle on, and that's why I stand on it.
All right, well, we just want to thank everybody for coming out today to the City Council debate. We want to thank the candidates for taking the time to answer our questions. I'm sure that they would be happy to stay and answer additional questions for you at that time if you want to stay afterwards. We're going to go to the closing statements now, and we are back to Carissa. We'll give you 2 minutes.
All right. We need people who care about people to be at the table making the decisions on behalf of the people. I'm one of those people. I love my friends and neighbors deeply. All of the good and wonderful and beautiful things that I hope for my family are the same good and wonderful and beautiful things I hope for your family. American Fork is my city. My children and I check out books at the library. I work out at the American Fork Rec Center. My children attend a local public school. These are my neighbors. You are my neighbors. And I am truly invested in making sure that we have a safe and secure community. And I'm invested in the success of American Fork. I will use my voice at the table to help make decisions that ensure the safety and success of our individual families as well as our community as a whole. The role of a city councilwoman is a big responsibility. This is a group of people who are making the decisions on behalf of their constituents that impact the entire city. One of the most important tools we can use is creativity to help solve those complex problems. When a group of people like City Council have a lot in common and have a lot of the same shared experiences and biases, unconventional ideas are often disregarded or not even brought up to begin with. The same demographics have been represented over and over again. However, we are an expanding, growing community, and we have an expanding array of life experiences. I believe there are a lot of people in American Fork who are just like me, who deserve to be represented and have the challenges that they face addressed. I'm your girl, okay? My lived experiences are what bring me to the voting booth. That's what's brought me to this city council electoral race. I know what's going on in our community, and my lived experience will bring creativity, empathy, and efficiency to our city budget. I will be an advocate for reinvesting in our families and communities. I'm your girl, vote for Carissa George for City Council November 2nd. Thank you.
Okay, I do not have a long written closing statement for you like I did for my opening statement. I will say that when I ran the first time 4 years ago, I ran with the idea that I wanted to work in collaboration with others with civility and hard work. So those are my three: hard work, civility, and collaboration. And the reason that I chose those was because someone like me who has watched policy being made for 25, 35 years, I won't tell you how old I am, I have sat in despair watching how policymakers have treated one another. So I chose to make that the hallmark of how I wanted to treat others. And I feel like I have succeeded in that goal, and I want to continue down that road. That we really need to work together to solve problems. It's not a one-person show, particularly in the council, where we have 5, and none of us can make any rules on our own. So I stand by that still. I work with professionalism and hard work, civility, and collaboration. Thank you.
I don't have any prepared statements. I just want you to feel, I hope you come away from this knowing that I love our city. I have many ideas. There are things that I've seen. I've served in many, many areas. I've attended many, many meetings for years, 15 years at least. There are a lot of ideas that I have the opportunity to be able to participate in. I want to first thank the Chamber. Seth, thank you for putting this on. It's a thankless job. There's a lot of volunteer time put into this. I want to thank the staff, the mayor, the administration for the things that they've done. Stacey mentions the collaboration on the council. I've seen that for a few months now. There is not a rubber stamp process in the city as it might have been projected to be. There's significant debate. I'm looking at the back, and there's Rob back there. Rob and I sit next to each other on the council, on the stand, and there's a lot of conversations that he and I have, both in and out of the meetings. And it's very respectful. It's very, we both come from genuine and honest positions, and I think that's the healthy nature of a council. But I also say that it takes more than a 4-year window to accomplish the things that we've talked about tonight. You can't create reclaimed water, recycled water in a 4-year cycle. We can't redo the entire infrastructure of a 100-year-old city in a 4-year window. It takes a council that's working together and has a long-term vision and will continue to keep an eye on the prize to be able to get to that point. I'm committed to doing that, but also committed to making sure that we're doing the things that will enhance life for our children and grandchildren, the same way that I'm benefiting from somebody that decided to put in clean water up the spring in American Fork Canyon.
That will conclude our debate. Let's give them all a big round of applause. Thank you for your time, and thank you for serving in the community. We'll take a short 5-minute break or so, and then we'll have the mayoral debate. All right, we want to thank everybody again for coming out for the city council debate. We're excited now to be here to have the mayoral debate, and we're going to follow the same format that we followed with the city council debate. The candidates will be given 3 minutes to give an introduction, and then we will rotate questions. Each candidate will be given a minute to answer that question, and they can have up to 30 seconds for a rebuttal. So we will start with Tim.
Thank you. Good evening, everybody. I appreciate everybody coming out. You know, this is a great honor to even be up here. This is something I've been thinking about a lot in my campaign, is just the fact that we live in a free society and that we have liberty. It's something that we all too often take for granted. And to be able to participate in an election in this way is something that is the envy of many people around the world. And that's something that I saw in my travels as a Marine, is saw countries where opportunities like this weren't even possible. I've been in Utah now for about 16 years, and the Marines, they took me away from Utah. They took me to beautiful Hawaii, but still I came back to American Fork. My job with IBM after grad school, it took me to Atlanta, the town I mostly grew up in, but still I came back to American Fork. And we all come here, we all live here for the same reasons. It's an amazing community, there's low crime, lots of opportunity, it's a great family place. And for that reason, we can't thank our city leadership. They've done a great job to create a place that we love to live, and many people are moving here. That's why we have so much growth. But that doesn't mean that there aren't problems that need to be addressed and that need to be addressed now. My 3 pillars for the campaign are budget, growth, and unity. The budget is something that is top of mind for me, and especially as I feel it feeds into many of the other issues in our city. And I also look at it as a systems approach where everything feeds into everything else. And with the budget, that's the taxes and fees that are collected by the city. And that's something that we need to take very seriously. And it's the labor that we put into every day. It's what we commit to with our lives. And we need to make sure that the city manages all the money, all the resources that they collect and manage it properly, and make sure that expenses don't keep on increasing and that we have revenue that matches the expenses. The second piece is growth. Making sure that we can grow, and growing is fine, but we need to make sure that it's smart. Make sure that we're proactively planning for the growth, make sure that we're allocating the right resources, and making sure that we manage our the roads, the infrastructure, and everything that goes along with that. The final piece is unity, and making sure that even as we do grow and we go from a smaller city to a larger city, that we still have a strong community. And other things that the city have done well is things like the Steel Days, the Police Night Out, and other activities, and the 9/11 Service Day, making sure that we still grow and feel that small town feel in a growing city. I'm a United States Marine, and I'm also a small businessman. I have experience in the IT industry as a salesman as well. I stay pretty busy. But I have experience leading men and women from all over the world. I have experience in managing a business through COVID, and I've be able to show that with my experience comes in a variety of formats, and that results also are very important. I appreciate everybody coming out today, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you for being here. My name is Brad Frost. I am currently the mayor of American Fork, and I want to tell you it has been a real ride for me. It's something that I cherish, something that I enjoy, something that I have loved to be doing. Being up here is not something that I'm extremely comfortable with in one fashion. During a campaign, one needs to talk about themselves. And I like to be with people, I lead people. But sometimes you have to talk about yourself, and you have to talk about accomplishments. And so in me, I'm going to have to just, maybe it's for my purposes, it's a disclaimer, because you're going to hear about me. And I think that's what you expect. But when we leave and we go to work, it's all about we. So, but I have born and raised in American Fork. I've lived here for my entire life, and we have raised our family here. I don't know if we've done just such a good job at parenting, but as our kids have launched out, they've all just kind of sucked right here into American Fork. This is our home. It's my desire to make it a better place than what I left it. That's why I'm in. Many people ask you, why would you like to be the mayor? Why would you want to be in politics? Serving people is something that is just within my nature. And style and communication matters. And I've had great opportunities to work with wonderful individuals. The mayor of a city, in my opinion, really does set a wonderful tone, and can and should. And people feed off it. The mayor does not vote, only on occasions. If somebody's absent, he votes. So as far as policy things, he does not typically have that vote, but he has persuasion. And so I have just kind of thought about the things that I've had leadership roles over. I chair the Utah Lake Commission. I was voted by my peers of 17 cities to chair that board. It's a very big responsibility that governs over the Utah Lake. When COVID hit, we had $20 million from the CARES Act. It was allocated through the county, and the mayors got together and they picked 5 members of their peers to be able to allocate that money. Not a recommendation board, we actually allocated the money. They picked me to be on that board. I think it's because I have good thought process. I don't jump to conclusions. I hear things and then I communicate. I'm not the one that has to be speaking all the time. You know, the old saying, 2 ears, 1 mouth, I really believe in that. But please know how much I love the city. And I am dedicated to the success, not only today, but for its future.
All right, we'll get right into our questions. The first question will be for Tim, and each candidate will have the opportunity to answer it. What did the city do well to handle the pandemic recently, and what can it do better to prepare for a future crisis?
All right. I think that they did well by not getting heavily involved with people's daily lives, and especially how businesses operate. That's something that's super critical to me as a small businessman. share a quick story. I had 2 locations. I had one in Provo and I had one in Salt Lake. And the way that Provo handled the COVID pandemic and the way Salt Lake handled it were night and day, and it was the difference between one business thriving and one business not. And so that's something that I'm very impressed with and why I've been so glad, because they handled it where everything was still safe and secure. There were people wearing masks and there weren't massive protests about the mask or keeping us safe, but also they made sure that businesses were able to operate as usual. And so that's something I just would want to continue, is any type of situations to still allow liberty, still have the same principles of limited government, and let people, as much as possible, decentralize and let people and businesses decide how to remain safe and how to manage their own lives.
Well, COVID, I'll tell you, we were right in the driver's seat of COVID. What I think the city did well is that we were very nimble and we had to make quick pivots based upon state policy. So we would hear something that would come down from the government, from the state health department, and I would meet regularly with our staff, our city administrator. Sometimes we was on Sunday. We had heard something, we had to implement something the next day. We pulled and pivoted. For example, staff, when they closed down right at first, we took Crossing Guard School was closed. We took the seniors out of the senior center because they were at higher risk, and we put them, feeding them at the curb. And so we had to be very, very nimble and pivot very, very quick. And so that is what we did at the time. In the future, and to address the full question, I am part of the COVID Recovery Committee. That is a county committee, and we are crafting policies for what will happen next, whether it's a pandemic or just a natural disaster.
On that question?
Thank you. Oh, okay. Yep. Sorry.
I have additional 30 seconds. So I'm going to talk about the senior center. Senior center, they were at high risk. We worked with MAG Aged Services. They were eating here congruently, and it just wasn't working out. It was too unsafe. And so I met with the MAG, and MAG pivoted for not only our center but others. And through COVID, we fed almost 40,000 meals to our seniors. But it was more than a meal. That was, for some, the reason to get up and do something in the morning. One lady said, "That's why I put on my makeup." So we were giving them more for me. We were their community there for several months.
Okay, let's move on to the next question. We will go to Brad for this one. How are you planning on addressing the affordable housing issue?
I knew that was going to come up. I meet with mayors. We have breakfast with 5 mayors once a month, and we think we can maybe solve world hunger easier. That's a joke. Affordable housing. I think that the best avenue the city has is providing options. In American Fork, you have options. You can have a 1-acre lot. You can pay $1 million for it. You can have townhomes. You can have, a wide range. Right there's a development over behind the D-High. The only property you own as the property owner is vertical. It's all the other is common area. So the best thing the city can do is provide options to residents so that they have a wide range of possibilities to fit within their income. Outside of that, we have partnered with Utah County and provided subsidized housing for seniors.
All right, so as far as the affordable housing, I think it's important to realize what the city can and cannot do. There are some things that are just macroeconomic issues that the city, the county, the state does not have control over. And that's also something that where the mayor can have some leadership examples or some leadership accountability to say, hey, this is an issue, this is an economic issue that we're just gonna have to deal with. But as far as some actual specific things that can be done, you can continue to build houses. That's one thing. You can keep on looking for ways to build, and that will decrease the need of that will increase the supply, and so that will help with the pricing. And that's really some of the things you can do. As Brad said, you could do some subsidized housing, but it's just important to be aware that when there are these, as I said, macroeconomic issues, that there are some things that are just outside the control of politicians, and it's just something that is really important to take ownership and say, hey, this is something that is just going to be happening, and we need to account for it in some other way.
I'd like to ask a follow-up question to that, and this would, Kelly, this would be another full minute, and we could still do a rebuttal after that as well. In regards to housing, what are your thoughts on high-density housing?
I think high-density housing has its place in any community. In this city, we see it. But I think the responsible way of using density is putting it by transit corridors or I-15 corridors. If you go down by the Front Runner station, the Front Runner is really the hub to the Wasatch Front. And you will see other transit projects within the next decade that will begin to be part of the transportation mode of our city and surrounding cities. And so, well, how do I feel about them? I think that is part of the menu of options if you want to live in American Fork City. We are allowing them. It's been zoned as such, and we heard about that with the city council. But doing it responsible is putting them in the right places, and so the services and things like that, especially down by the Front Runner, it will follow the demographics and the population that will come. And so it has its place. Just put it in the right spot.
Yes, as far as high-density housing, that's probably one of the most common things I hear from people when I'm knocking on doors is, how do we control the high-density housing? How do we make sure that not every single empty lot turns into high-density housing? I live right across the street from a place that there are people trying to turn the parking lot into high-density housing, trying to turn it into 3 or 4 story apartment complex. And that's something that the city can say, hey, we're not going to turn every single empty lot that becomes available into high-density housing, because it does. It puts a strain on the infrastructure, to use that word. It puts a strain on the traffic. It puts a strain on the quality of life. It puts a strain on the water that was addressed in the city council meetings and might be by ours. But high-density housing, for me and for many other people, needs to be limited, and it doesn't need to be a, as I said, default position where every time there's an empty lot, we say we're going to make that high-density housing. And with that, you need to be proactive, extremely proactive, with making sure that things like the roads and other parts of the city are adapting to it, so that you don't have massive traffic issues and other things.
Yeah, you both are welcome to 30 seconds.
Yeah, 30 seconds. So I'll just say this. As far as just this default position as high density, that is not the position of the city. We have land use and we have zoning regulations, and they are specifically designed to put people and densities in the right places. When a vacant lot comes up, it's not a default to say, hey, we're going to put something there. There are options for zone changes, but I haven't seen a zone change to bring high density in the middle of town since I've been the mayor. And so the city policies really can't craft that.
And final thought about this is that we're in an interesting position being in Utah County, is that our high-density housing, also everybody who moves into high-density housing, they bring cars. It's not someplace like New York City where people move there and they don't bring vehicles, but everybody who does come here and moves into high-density housing, they bring 1-2 vehicles for their family. So it's just something that we need to be aware of, once again, that we're developing roads proactively and ahead of time to make sure that when these high-density housing lots are installed, that we have the roadways and, as I said, the quality of life that matches it.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to move on with the questions, and this one will go to Tim first. Tim, what is your vision or plan to retain and attract police, fire, and EMT?
I think that's an awesome question, and that's something I think about a lot, especially as a Marine. And there's a few things that you can do. One is just making sure that you're hiring people. So when you're looking for applicants, you make sure that you're hiring good people. And one of the issues that we have coming up is our chief of police recently resigned. And so we're going to need to look for somebody, a man or a woman, who can fill that position and make sure that the men and women that are in our police department get the resources they need, they get the training they need, and that we have, as a city, we make sure that we increase the morale. And we do things like the police night out. We make sure that there are opportunities for people to meet the police and make sure that they're taken care of, as I said. And also, along with that, the fire department and the EMT, we're building a new fire station. We need to make sure that, once again, everybody has the right resources and the right training, and that they have good leadership. Because I saw that in the Marines, that when you have the right resources, the right training, and good leadership, then most of the other problems will go away. It's when you start having those lacking, those deficits, and when people feel that they're neglected and they're not taken care of, then you'll start to have issues.
I spent an hour and a half today on a meeting, on a subcommittee that I sit on called Love, Listen, Lead. And it's just uncanny. That is exactly the topic that dominated most of the meeting. It's not all about the money. That is a component of being in that field. But over the year, probably year and a half, that the profession of policeman has taken a beating. And so I think that there's a perception. And one of the concerns is we're not seeing a lot of new officers. So having morale. I can tell you something that your mayor did. When things were happening in Salt Lake that just seemed chaotic, and it was happening all throughout the nation, I thought, what can I do for our police? What are they seeing, their role? I called every one of our policemen. In 2 days, I thought I could do it. Some I couldn't get. I called every one of them, and I said, I want you to know that your mayor, and I said, I represent the city. Your city supports you. They need to feel that.
And just another thing that I was thinking about with the EMT as well, and something that's been really hectic has been this COVID situation where the nurses, the medical staff, where they've been feeling overwhelmed, and I know that's been a mental health issue as well. So that's just, once again, making sure that they have the resources, that they know that people care about them, and also doing things to get the community to assist with these things, to make sure that the community is doing their part to alleviate the issues and to alleviate the burden that is faced by, whether it's the police department, the fire department, the EMT, and not make their job more difficult.
I just wanted to, this has nothing to do with me or Tim, but I can just say this, as a mayor, I viewed this, and I see this. Our city really does support their law enforcement and their firefighters. I know it because there's not a day they don't get something brought to them, whether that be a note, whether that be a business bringing in a meal, or just anything. I am just so happy with how our residents have shown their support. They've witnessed probably what the need is, and they have responded to it.
I'd like to ask a question now that we brought up in the city council debate. It's actually a little bit of a two-part question now. As the question was asked, there were some things that were brought up, and I think this is applicable. One, do you support the park tax? And two, what plan does the city or yourself have to make sure that more transparency is used with those funds? More transparency with the funds used. And we'll start with Brad on that one.
Do I support the park tax? I'll have a sign in my yard. I don't have it, but yes, I do. I absolutely support it. I have seen what $6.4 million has done for the good of our city. And we talk about the physical investments like pavilions, ball fields, and things like that. What I see as well, I see the investment in people. I've gone to some of the symphonies, and I think, where would they be able to use talents? You know, this band is, or this city is famous for their band, and where else but American Fork? But you're just going to get done with the band, and you're going to put that instrument and shove it under your bed, and it's just going to go to dust. In American Fork City, because of the park tax, you have the ability to use that and continue to expand on your talent. So I love the fact that we have that. I am very, very supportive. I'd like to see it go. As far as transparency, I feel like we publish the right documentation, and perhaps if somebody thinks we need to do a better job, I'm happy to look into that, but they see what we see.
Thank you. So as far as the park tax, I think that's one of the more interesting and even divisive issues that I've actually talked with a lot of people about. As I've knocked on hundreds of doors, I've had very many people who said they like it, and they also said that they don't like it. And I think it's important as politicians and candidates to address the pros and the cons of any policy, and not just in a blanket way say we all support it wholeheartedly and it's a perfect proposition. Some of the issues that, so pros about it, it is something that's voted on by the residents. It is a small fraction of a percentage, and it does have some contributions from non-residents, and it's a specifically allocated fund. So that's awesome. But there are some cons, and these are some of the things that many people brought to me. One, is it needed anymore? Is this massive $1 million plus fund needed every year, especially with the Art Dive project done? That was $350,000 a year. And this year there's $160,000 that the park fund had to look to reallocate. So that's $500,000 total. And I'll probably take my 30 seconds to go over the transparency issues after that.
Brad, did you want to address that?
I got 30 seconds to talk about the park tax. I'll just say this, that I'll go back to the transparency. So somebody in this question thinks it's not transparent enough. And so I would just say this, I'm willing to look at it. Nobody's trying to hide the ball with the parks tax. We have very reputable people that are a recommendation board to us, and we take those recommendations and then the council acts upon them. But as far as controversy, I am not in the same circles as Tim that find people that are finding it very controversial. So.
Okay, so now the transparency. So yes, if you go to afpark.org, you can see a lot of stuff on the recipients, but the part what the people want to know about the transparency is they need to be broken down more. So for instance, it just says Art Dye Park, $350,000. But we want to know where that $350,000 went specifically. The TAF programming also got $240,000 a year. What does programming mean? Because we need to know what that specifically means. So that's not enough transparency, and you don't want to have to dig for it. You want to see on the website, $240,000, line items, and that's what it goes to. That's transparency.
Great, thank you very much. All right, we are back to Tim fielding the first part of this question. And this also was a question that we brought up during the city council debate. And I'd like to kind of streamline the question a little bit, and instead of just specifically talking about roads, as somebody who has a business front that is right out on the border of American Fork, how would you address and fix or deal with the increased traffic problems here in the city?
So there's a couple of things. This is once again goes back to the growth issue, making sure that we're not growing so fast that our roads and our main passageways don't become a mess. So that's something else. It's just, once again, tying in the growth piece to it. Also, as was mentioned by, I believe, Stacey, is that the state owns a lot of these roads, but that's not an excuse for the city to not make sure that these roads are updated or improved upon in some way. So it's working, collaborating with other entities to making sure that there is some plan in place. And then also, on top of the state roads, is something that the city can do is to figure out some kind of mass transit system. And I know that talking to David Bunker, our city administrator, they're looking at a looping bus, and that's one issue. But also some of the side roads, things like Pacific Drive, things like 200 South by the front runner, making sure that proactively, instead of letting the growth become such a problem where those are massive funnels, making sure that we're aggressively and proactively expanding these roads and figuring out ways where we can redirect people throughout the city as we grow.
It's an interesting dilemma because you have rush periods of time, especially evenings. And as mentioned, when I-15 gets shut down, it just causes havoc. But I'm a part of an organization called MAG. It's the Metropolitan Planning Organization for the entire county. So I think some things that are coming is that we're going to be extending, there's going to be $48 million spent between American Fork 5th East and PG 200 South. That will alleviate some of that logjam there. And then there's going to be about double that that's going to be spent on widening Pioneer Crossing between here and Saratoga Springs. Those are projects that the mayors vote on and prioritize. Those takes out some of the periphery. In the middle of the town, we are looking more at east-west connections. As Ryan stated, 700 north will go down into 740 north. And so looking at those just the patterns that we use, and then people will probably plan differently.
Thanks. And once again, I just want to reiterate, I think that one of the main problems in that it doesn't really have a current plan is doing Main Street, and that's specifically 500 East to the Main Street exit, and that's where a lot of the traffic happens, and that's kind of where I live. It's making sure the Main Street, which is where a lot of the main businesses are downtown area. This area right here, you have a parking lot basically from the exit all the way out to the town hub. And so we need to figure out a way as a city to address that now and also look forward as the city doubles in size over the next 30 years.
I'm going to say there's a conceptual plan that will be moving to a plan where there are options being considered. Again, it's a state road. They're asking for city input. That would move on-street parking from that choke point, and it would widen. It would take out portions of the sidewalk, make it shorter to provide for another lane. But UDOT is treading very lightly because of funds, and they want to be very collaborative. But that is the biggest choke point in the entire area of State Street.
Okay, back to the questions. Tim, you filled the last one, right? First?
I don't remember.
I did. Okay, that's what I have. I just double checking because it's getting late in the day and don't want to mess up. So this question will be for Brad. And this again goes back to the water issue that we talked about with the city council. What are your plans to deal with water shortages as the city continues to grow?
Water shortages. So there's two kinds of water. There's water rights. Best way I learned about it, that is the underground water. Water shares surface water. Think of what comes out of the canyon through the river. American Fork City is positioned with the water rights, your culinary water, for build out. We did that when they flipped and took what was going on your lawn and they put that into the PI. So 80% of that water was going onto the outdoor use. It is now being strictly used for culinary purposes. So American Fork City is in a very strong position with culinary water. And with outdoor use water, Mother Nature threw us a curveball this year, a big one, historical drought. The residents did very well. In the end, I think we'll know here in about a week, I think we'll save 1 billion gallons of water. Right now it's about 910 million. So we've learned how to use it to conserve. That is one of their best tools.
And I agree with what Brad just said. I think the city, how they helped and encouraged people to conserve water this year is something to be applauded. It's something that when you compare Spanish Fork City, I think they saved like 250,000 or million gallons or something. And as he said, we're gonna save probably close to 4 times that. Some of the things that you can do to, once again, it's all about managing growth, but also making sure that our water reservoirs, and that's working with other cities and working with the county and the state, making sure our water reservoirs continue to expand. And this is something that I've talked about with Brad and something that he's been a part of, is making sure that things like Table Fork Reservoir and other types of those continue to expand. And so kind of like a savings account, that you continue to have some kind of savings account for water so when there are droughts. And especially if you, and there's a lot of people who argue for climate change, and that these kinds of weather systems are not going to go away, and if the population is only going to double, we have to be aware that this water problem is only going to get worse as the population goes from 35,000 to about 60 to 80,000. And so we just need to be able to have the watership ownership rights and continue to expand our reservoirs to have a savings account of water.
It's okay if I add to it, but it's not a rebuttal or anything, okay. So American Fork City is in a very unique position because we are neighbors to Timpanogos Sewer District. And so on my website, you can see this, but if American Fork, we can, the Timpanogos Sewer, they put out 20 million gallons a day into Utah Lake. That's water, if it's treated one step further, it's called tertiary treatment. It has the ability, American Fork, to gather that and bring it into the PI and blend it in. We can't set this city up in perpetuity if another drought comes, we would not have to worry. That is something that I would like to keep up.
Okay, some other ideas. A better metering system, upgrading our metering system to have some kind of digital, real-time metering system so the city can know exactly how much water is being used, whether it's irrigation or culinary. That's some other things. And then other things like looking at how the city can reduce water usage, whether it's for parks or other things. I know that we like our parks. But other the ideas that Carissa talked about is looking at other landscaping. Do we all need grass in our yards? I know that's something that I love grass in my yard, but we just need to think about creative solutions and we look at them in different aspects and then we try them out and see what works.
Okay, so we are back to Tim now for the next question. And that question is this. What are your thoughts on the city acquiring/investing in property, whether it be for buildings, facilities, or parks?
I guess I would have to know exactly what that's going involved with, because when you just say you're investing in building, cities, parks, what was the third one?
Acquiring or investing in property.
So I'm not sure that I want the city to ever be investing in property. I'm not sure what the purpose of that would be. I'm not sure I want the city just spending hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars on land. I'd have to really know what the exact purpose was. So my default answer would be, no, I don't want the city taking taxpayer money and investing it in property. I mean, if that's something that private businesses can do, because I feel that private businesses can do better with businesses or with residential. And so, as I said, I'd have to know a little bit more about specific purpose, because my default answer would just be, no, I don't want the city taking taxpayer money and investing it in property. So I don't have much else to say about that.
I think the only time that I would think that would be appropriate would be if it was for the interest of the city as a whole. For instance, we just acquired a parcel to expand public works, a piece of property. We just acquired a large parcel to expand our park system down south of the city, down south of I-15. Those are appropriate places where the city gets involved and they actually actively seek to buy and search out peoples and their property if it's for the good of the citizens. The city is going to expand, and if we don't take a proactive approach, the land will get bought up. Buying property down south of town, and it's a large parcel, something about 2/3 of the size of our die. Well, our biggest competitors were the developers. And so we had to get out in front of them for the good of the residents and purchase that property, in which we intend to do and have made a commitment to do that.
Actually, I'll spend my 30 seconds to talk about that. So yes, the city spent about $3 million, if I'm correct, from the budget on some land south of the highway. And so once again, it can be good to be proactive if you're going to use it for the city, because we all know that land is only going to become more expensive. But at the same time, if the city's going to spend $3 million on a land purchase, we need to make sure, one, how long the city's going to hold on to it, because we don't want them to hold on to it for like 10, 15, 20 years, and then maybe never use it, and then it just becomes a waste. And also make sure that it's a good investment and that they're actually getting the right purchase price out of it.
Thank you. You guys answered like 2 questions at the same time, so good job. That was fantastic. I'd like to go back to a little bit about the infrastructure, which is also a question we talked about with the City Council, and this will start with Brad now. And please comment on how you will improve infrastructure for technology, specifically the demand for technology, including fiber, 911 response, improved water metering, smart city initiatives. That's a big question.
Yeah, that is a big question. It's a long question, but I think for me, it's people ask me, I had an email last night, what's the city doing with fiber? My response to that is, when we didn't throw it in the garbage, we put it on a shelf. But I think the City Council and myself are committed to pull it off the shelf and dust it off, take what we know, and look at all the other options that might be available to us as a city. The city has unique assets in dealing with fiber. We own dark fiber in the I-15 core. It's an asset, but as it's dark, it's not worth a lot. You light it up, it becomes very valuable. So the City Council and myself, we want to make sure that value is transformed, is transferred to our residents. So I'm very committed to look at fiber options and what works best for American Fork City, because that is almost, it's just become, if my water goes off, my kids don't know it. If Wi-Fi goes down, I know in 30 seconds.
All right, so as far as technology, I work for an IT company, IBM, and so technology is something I think about on a daily basis and how we can leverage technology to improve our lives. And something I've talked about with people is that you can invest in technology and it helps refine processes, it helps make things more efficient, it helps make things more cost effective, and that's things like the smart metering system. So we had some kind of digital metering system that with real-time technology sent to the city, we could better monitor water usage. And things like so with the fiber internet thing, the only thing that I think about with that is that I do not want it to be the government, whether city, state, getting involved and doing some kind of massive fiber optic internet thing that's going to cost hundreds of thousands, not millions of dollars, and do inefficiently, and there's waste that creeps into it like most government projects. So how we do that is we get businesses to either support it, so when businesses come in, help support some kind of it. We can get developers to work on it, and then we can get private individuals to work on getting fiber internet at their own homes, and that way we keep the cost down, and people who don't want it and don't need it don't have to purchase it.
Great, thank you very much. All right, this next question will be for Tim. And Tim, the question is, what unique qualities, and this is kind of a little more basic / personal question, what unique qualities do you think that you would bring as the mayor of American Fork City?
I bring the unique quality. I'm also like Brad, I hate talking about myself, by the way, but I bring the unique qualities of a diverse experience of having lived in quite a few different areas, whether it's growing up in a small town in Georgia, living in Hawaii, living in Australia, being deployed to Afghanistan, so seeing a bunch of different types of locations. So I bring diversity of experience, and I also bring the quality of leading men and women, as I said in my introduction, from different backgrounds and being able to successfully guide them and to accomplish goals. The other unique quality that I've seen is building strong teams and figuring out where my gaps are, where my weaknesses are, and getting people to fill those in. Because none of us are perfect. We don't know very much at all. We might pretend like we know a lot or that we're awesome, but we don't. And so it's important to find men and women who can fill your gaps. And that's where I've seen success in the Marines, in my small business, and now in sales, where I've been able to see this is where I lack. So find myself people who can work and help me figure out where I can have those weaknesses and fill those in with their strengths.
I think I bring a unique quality of just knowing the lifeblood of this city. And not just as being the mayor, but being born and raised here. Knowing the streets, knowing a lot of the old people, the traditions of our city. And I take it to heart. I love hearing the American Fork Band from our house. I know what that means. It just means that kids are working and they're developing talents. And so I think I also bring a temperate personality and a statesman-like approach to solving problems, where people can sit down and we can have a good conversation, and that I don't need to be the smartest man in the room to understand anything, but I can get good input with the ability to make good decisions. And so that has been something I feel I do well at. And I think that is one of the very main responsibility of the mayor. You do not have to be the smartest man in the room, but you just need to be able to take good input, because there's a lot of decisions you have to make. And some of them are independent. Most of them, you're working with the team, with the council, which is great.
I'll talk 30 seconds more about myself, even though I hate doing it. So some of the other unique qualities, this just goes to my work background, is that I have large organization experience. In a lot of ways, American Fork is becoming a large organization that's rapidly growing. So in the Marine Corps, there's hundreds of thousands of employees, IBM, hundreds of thousands of employees. So having that big organization experience and being able to work and connect with people is also a critical aspect of where I found success. And then something that Carissa talked about is the power of listening, and that is critical for a leader anywhere, to be able to listen and to understand and then seek to be understood. That's one of the 7 habits of highly effective people.
Thank you. It looks like we got probably time for one more question, and then we'll do closing statements. And I want to go back to something that, again, we talked about with the city council, but it's something that's always on the minds of the citizens in every city. What ideas do you have moving forward that can increase revenue or cut expenses? And it's Brad, yes.
You know, I have spent my entire time on the council and as a mayor thinking, how do we cut expenses? And I have come to the conclusion that you can't you can't continually kick the can down the road. But I'll just tell you a lens that I looked through. When I was elected as a council, I had a gentleman that just brought me into his home, and he let me know that he was on his fixed income, and he wanted me to let me know personally. And I got it. You know, I know who pays the bills in the city, and it's the residents, and it's the businesses. And then I look at through the eyes of one of my grandkids that lives here, thinking that we have to look out ahead as well. But through those two lenses lies the answer, I think. So I will continue. I'm a money hawk, a savings hawk, and I have to tell you this, not only am I, but this city council as well. You have a team of people that have their eyes on this budget, and they dissect it every year and break it down.
So my philosophy in general about government is that it's never a revenue problem, it's always an expenses problem, that you can always find ways to trim some of the excess and some of the waste and some of the inefficiencies in government, and that whenever you have this question pop up, it's like always, how can we raise taxes, or how can we get more money out of people? So some of the things that I think about a lot is just prioritizing what is actually important to the city, what's the goals of the city, and how do we accomplish that? And so where do we find out what's needed or what's wanted, and then the what's wanted part, we can maybe get rid of those. And also, where do we find the inefficiencies? And something I talked about or thought about is like finding people who can either audit the budget and look for those waste and inefficiencies. That could be an investment in how we figure out where those waste points are, where those inefficiencies are, and then we can attack those problems. And things like the rec center is becoming less efficient. They say it in the budget, 25 to 29% operational. So figuring out how we can do something like that and actually taking some action, like raising the revenue on the fees instead of having the city just pay for it out of taxes. That's it.
Well, I want to thank everybody for coming. We're going to now go to closing statements. And Tim, you'll get to go first. You have 2 minutes.
So I want to once again thank everybody for coming out tonight. I know that you have tons of things to do. We have families, we have jobs, we have things we like to do, like even watch TV at the end of the night. But for you to come out here, it is critical to be involved with the democratic process. It's critical for you to hold your politicians accountable. And this is one way to do it, to actually come talk to them, come know them, and hear what they actually say. And then when they say it, make sure they actually do it. And so I appreciate everybody coming out here. And just something I think about a lot is that we have a city that we love very much. We love it here, and people love living here, and that's what I said with my opening statement. And that doesn't mean that we can't do better, and that there's something that we can do to improve our city. And so as I talk to people, it's just that a lot of people feel that way. A lot of people feel that the city is great, but there are things that can be improved, and it's time for a change of leadership, and it's time that we can look at things to do better. And so something I thought about too is there was this message from this past weekend where it says, worthiness is not flawlessness. And so something that I think about a lot is that even though we love our city, we know that we can do better, that we need to look for making improvements. And it can be these incremental improvements, whether it's looking for better ways to implement policy or better politicians that we can find into different offices. And so I just want to reiterate my platform too as we close out, is that I am committed to having a managed budget, making sure that our expenses don't continue to creep up and that we don't have expenses that exceed revenue. I'm also committed to better managing the growth and making sure that we are proactive in our planning in the city and that we are smart with how we grow as a city and that the population doesn't just grow so fast that the quality of life decreases. And then also I'm committed to building a unified committee or a unified community where we can have the best American Fork possible. And that's something that I believe Stacey mentioned, is that something that we all work on together. It's not just something we leave to our politicians or people in the American Fork City staff. We all work together, we identify what the problems are, and we work hard, and we make those sacrifices to make our city better. So thank you so much, and remember Tim Hawley for mayor.
You know, this is kind of a different thing for people to come and hear. We have complex questions with 1 minute answers, you know, and that's not always easy to really explain all the details and things that go with it. Not an excuse, but what I would ask is if you didn't get the answer or not the detail that you want from me tonight, I will stay after. I would direct you to my website, which you can see, and you can always reach out to me through my website, through email. So really, one of my closing things would be, if you want more, you need to know more from me, I am available, and I want to provide that for you. And I say that to to the entire city. But you know, one of the things that's important is unity. I would agree to that. And so about 4 or 5 months ago, how do we unify the city? And I think that I asked a member of our Daughters of the Utah Pioneers, who runs this little museum over here. I said, we need to go back to our roots. And so if you've noticed in the hub, in the newsletter, you're seeing small segments of what happened in American Fork when we came here. And yes, this city has changed and it will continue to change. We shouldn't expect it not to change. But back to our basic roots, the same principles apply. It's about people. It's about loving people and community and being a part of that. And I am just very, very humbled to be able to lead that. I feel like I'm, you know, you come every 4 years or election, you're on trial. I get it. And so I put myself out there as one willing, very able, and I have the support of my entire family. I wouldn't have jumped into this without their consent. And so I would love for you to vote me back in as mayor, because when you vote me in, you're going to get my whole heart and my mind and my attention.
All right. Well, thank you both.
Tim, Brad, we
Appreciate you guys. Let's give them a big round of applause one more time. Thank you to everybody who came out. Thank you to the City Council, to the Senior Citizen Center for hosting us, and everybody have a safe and happy evening.